We can decide we want to do it and move forward with it. We can decide we want to listen to the naysayers and not move forward at all. Or we can allow others' expectations to define our path. And the metaphor for my story is to understand that we are running on an uncharted path, meaning that these experiences that we encounter in our life are not always going to be known, and we have to make the best and create our own definitions of what those unknowns are.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Jess Silver. How are you doing today, Jess?
Great, thank you. Very excited to be here.
I am too. I'm really excited to get to talk to you a little bit more today.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see which direction you'll take the conversation in and to share as much as I can about my story and my work and maybe some other projects that I've taken on kind of on the side, which relate to both my story and my work as well. And hopefully to leave your listeners with an impact and something that they can learn from me today and a way that they would also be able to engage with me as well.
Jess, I love that. I always like to kick off the show and talk of the importance of networking. How are we connected?
We actually connected through a group on Facebook that was called Find a Guest, Be a Guest. And I was looking to be on podcasts. And I reached out to you, or actually, you reached out to me and said that you would like to feature my story and my audiobook on your podcast. And here we are.
Exactly, Jess. It's one of those things where I love groups like that. You can find so many interesting stories, and it really excites me to learn how many people are out there really wanting to share that story.
hmm Yeah. So thank you for reaching out, and I'm always very excited to network and connect with lots of people. I myself like to think of myself as a connector because I have a very outgoing personality. I have since I was from a very young age. Really, since I started school, I've always been the type of individual that likes to be around other people and connect with others. And now in my work as an entrepreneur, that's all I do all day, every day is connect with so many different people. So I'm excited to share more about that with you and share more specifically about how sport and fitness relates to my story.
I want to know a little bit more about you, that origin story, that comic book issue number one. We got into it a little bit, but I would love even how you got into basketball of all sports.
Well, I think the way that I got into basketball or why I got into basketball is because my dad was the individual who inspired me to love that game. That game is his game of choice. It's a game that he loved and that he played when he was in school and then later when he was in university. And he knew all the rules and really understood the game deeply and was interested in the game. So we started watching it together. And, I watched it with him and he taught me all the rules and we talked about the players, and I really started, following every player from the 90s very like in a lot of depth. And so that's why I really turned to basketball, and he also loves tennis and soccer too. So those were the sports that I was exposed to. But I think the reason why basketball was is my game that I really feel most passionate about and get most excited about is because I love that it's a contact sport, it's a team sport, but then it's also so much of it is reliant on the individual player, and I feel like that is just so much of my story is echoed in that as well. Because like I said, I'm a connector. I'm an individual who likes to be with other people and helping other people and change, trying to make a positive impact on other people's lives. But then I'm also very focused on my own pursuits. So I feel like I just very strongly relate to the game. And as for my origin story, I grew up in Toronto. I live in Canada. I'm from Toronto, Canada, actually from a suburb, a smaller city called Vaughan, but nobody really knows of Vaughan. When you talk about Canada and you say Toronto, everybody's like, "Oh, I know where you're from." So I grew up in TO. Love TO. TO is home, and whenever I'm downtown Toronto, if you've ever had a chance to be downtown, or any of your listeners have been downtown Toronto, whenever I see the CN Tower and Scotiabank Arena, which it's now called, it used to be called the Air Canada Centre, which is where the Raps play. And I also love the theater district. Whenever I'm downtown, that is when I feel like my pulse is ticking, and I feel like I belong here. I also love the fact that our city is very multicultural and has so many experiences that it can offer, from everything from entertainment to sports to learning about people, because there's so many different people that are from Toronto, in Toronto, or that come to Toronto as tourists. I also speak 5 languages. um, I grew up in a family that was originally from different parts of Eastern Europe, and that speaks Russian. And Russian is actually my first language. And it's interesting because when I started school, like I said, I mean, when I was little, I wasn't expected to do very much because of my physical challenge and limitations that cerebral palsy implicates on a individual. And really, the doctors didn't know what to tell my parents to expect that I would be able to do. So when I grew up, or as I was growing up, for me to be able to start speaking my parents' language, and have spoken it with them ever since I've been able to speak, as well as with my grandparents, and then also learning English when I went to school, and then learning French because French is the second language in Canada. And I also studied Spanish in university and then taught myself Italian. I really have felt that, again, going back to who I am as a connector and as a storyteller, someone who's so invested in communications, and I have had a dream of writing since I was 6 years old. And I mean, we're going to talk about the fact that I published my memoir in 2020 at the beginning of COVID. But speaking so many languages, and being able to translate my experiences from all of the adversity I've faced and everything that I've experienced in my life, traveling to different countries, and my academic experiences, and using writing as a tool, I really feel that communication, I kind of feel that I have like three callings, if you want to kind of separate them. One is, I feel that my biggest calling, my greatest calling, or greatest way that I can have an impact on people is trying to help as many people as I can, and changing the world, or trying to change the way that society understands physical disability, to create more awareness and create more equality and more actual meaningful experiences for individuals like myself, who are human, just as you are a human, and as all of your listeners are human beings. If we move differently because we have a disability, that doesn't matter. We're still human beings. So one of my callings is to be able to help people and educate people. The second is to be able to communicate and storytell through writing, um, and through sharing presentations and speaking, which is what I do all the time. And the third is sport, and using sport and fitness as a vehicle to change my life, to make positive changes, and also through my organization to impact the lives of others.
Jess, what pushed you to really start going for it? It's one thing to have those dreams. You mentioned you love sports since you were young. You always enjoyed writing and speaking so many languages. You had those ideas and those messages to share. When did you really start to really go in on it?
That's a very hard question for me to answer. When I think about it, I don't like to toot my own horn, as I often say, but I really started to tap into these various skill sets from the age of, like, I would say 10. really when I, started to mature more. And something that I talk about very often is having a physical challenge like mine. That motivated me, or that pushed me to grow up a lot faster than other individuals that don't face physical adversity, because I knew that my life having this challenge is going to be different than others, but I also was always pushing myself because I didn't want it to be so different from other people's that, I was never raised to believe that because I have a challenge there were so many things I couldn't do. So from as young as I can remember, I've always been pushing myself to do more and take on more experiences and thrive when I'm being challenged, because all I know is, that feeling of being challenged and having my back up against the wall, and the world kind of telling me that I couldn't do so many things. So I have this, go-getter attitude to defy the odds as much as I could.
Jess, on everyone's path, they make a decision. You can go east, you can go west. Can you give me a time where you made a decision and just went for it?
Well, I've had many of those times, but I'll use the specific example of in 2017 when I registered my nonprofit organization Flex for Access. So I was facing a bit of turmoil in my professional life where a job opportunity didn't work out the way that I wanted it initially to work out. And at that time, I told myself that, I have to do something else. I can't just sit around and sulk and be upset. I mean, I was upset maybe for like 2 weeks. And then I said, okay, I have to do something more. So I started to think about what I could do to have more of a positive impact. And I actually contacted a news outlet here in Toronto, and I said, I want to share my story of me training in the gym, and I used that as a vehicle to kind of get everything into motion with Flex for Access, which started out as a social media awareness campaign in 2015, actually, to redefine the way that cerebral palsy is understood by society at large, and using sport and fitness to redefine the way that it is understood by creating opportunities for adaptive fitness and sport promotion in mainstream settings. And in 2017, because in 2015 when we started on social media, we started to gain so much traction using the hashtag flex for access of posts of individuals flexing their bicep in support of adaptive fitness and sport promotion, and individuals who didn't even tap into adaptive fitness but were just training in the gym or active were using the hashtag from as far as Brazil, Australia, all over the States and Canada. That in 2017 I said, you know what, we got to do something bigger, and I took it upon myself and I went for it, and I registered it as a nonprofit organization. And now we've existed as a nonprofit organization for 8 years. And since our inception, we've raised over $30,000. And the funding has gone towards facilitating the opportunities in mainstream settings for individuals that have physical disabilities and acquired injuries to engage with adaptive fitness and sport. And the funding also goes towards adaptive fitness based exercise equipment. Um, and I kind of since then, since really becoming an entrepreneur, have never let rejection, well, I won't say never, but try to not allow rejection and kind of naysayers to tell me that. And this might sound too bold for a lot of your listeners. I don't know what your audience is like, um, but have never let someone say to me that something that I want to do is too great and too big. Sometimes that's a bit difficult because I kind of want to do so many things at once that I have to tell myself to kind of slow down a little bit. But I would say since then, since registering my nonprofit organization, um, and also writing my book in 2020, um, I have this, attitude of anything that I want to do to make a more positive change, either in my life or the lives of others, I have to do because nobody else is going to do it for me, so to speak.
Jess, I completely appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing that story. I think one of the things you said a couple times was that, of course, rejection and naysayers and whatever may happen, and it will happen a lot of times. And you also mentioned allowing yourself to feel that. You mentioned after having that job opportunity not pan out, you were upset for 2 weeks, give or take. And it's one of those things I always remind people it's okay to feel those feelings. You just can't live in those feelings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I've had many experiences in my life mentioning physical adversity where I have many days that are, very physically taxing for me. And they're also, not only are they physically taxing, but they're also in turn emotionally taxing. And that's where I think for me sport is such an important mechanism for um moving forward, and for understanding why it is that we go through certain experiences. Because if we think about it, and my book, my memoir is called Run an Uncharted Direction, and it's available on Amazon, for those who would be interested in engaging with my story. And there's a paperback version, there's a ebook version, and we also have the audiobook. I also have the audiobook version on Audible. And in my book, in sharing my story, I talk about all of the experiences in my life that I've had. Well, not all of them are in the book because now we're in 2025, and I published it in 2020, and things continue to happen. But I talk about those moments where I could have thrown in the towel and said, I don't want to do this anymore. The world has expected me to fail so many times and not be able to do so many things. Um, and yet I continue to move forward. And it's called Run an Uncharted Direction because I'm a huge believer in the fact that we each pave our own path in life, and we have a choice. We have, say, two choices. We can decide that we want to do it, or maybe three. Let's say we have three choices. We can decide we want to do it and move forward with it. We can decide we want to listen to the naysayers and not move forward at all. Or we can allow others' expectations to define our path. And the metaphor for my story is to understand that we are running on an uncharted path, meaning that these experiences that we encounter in our life are not always going to be known, and we have to make the best and create our own definitions of what those unknowns are. And sport is something that I use, and entrepreneurship is something that I use, and my communications background is something that I use to um, allow for that meaning to be created in my life.
Jess, I appreciate that. Title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. We talked about it a little bit. Can you tell me more about your book? What prompted you to finally write it? You had mentioned you had all these ideas and many ideas all kind of piling together all at once. In 2020, what pushed you to actually start writing and then, of course, creating the audiobook as well?
So I wanted to publish my book for the longest time. But in and I actually started my master's in creative writing in 2012. And that was my thesis project originally, was to write a novel. So I was motivated since then to um, pull pull my story together. But when I was doing my master's, the direction of my writing was different. And then in 2020, I just had, an idea of how I wanted my story to culminate, and like the different vignettes, if we can call it that, the different episodes of my story coming together and everything kind of falling into place, that I finally, I had the trajectory of my story written out. I had certain like notes that I made on my phone and my computer, and I just said, I have time now. If I don't do it now, then I don't know when I'm going to do it. And I was also motivated during the pandemic to write more in order to engage with other people and hopefully motivate and inspire. I don't want this to sound cliche, but other people through sharing my story. And so in 2020, that was when I published it, my memoir. And then in 2021, I actually published another book on Amazon of quotes, as well, called Life's Lava: Quotes, Values, and Reflections That Light Our Souls and Color Our Days with Reason. And it's all a combination of quotes that I've written, along with photography that I paired with each quote. And I really felt that it was important for me to do during COVID because, you know, so many of us were at home, and I felt that writing for me again was a vehicle that could make sense of the adversity that we were facing as a world at the time of COVID. So I was really motivated then to publish my story and finally share it with the world. And then just recently, about a month ago or so, the audiobook of Run an Uncharted Direction was finally published, and now it's available on Audible as well.
Well, Jess, congratulations for all the success from writing the books to the quote book and the photography, especially during that time period where I think, as you know, as the world knows, it was pretty challenging for all of us.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, what are you working on right now? I know you have if I'm not mistaken, an event coming up soon.
Yeah. So my nonprofit organization, Flex for Access, is, you know, operating every day. Every day we are looking for more professionals to partner up with in order to facilitate more opportunities for adaptive fitness and sport promotion. I'm working on building up my consulting practice for adaptive fitness consulting. So if you or if any of your listeners work in that space or know of anybody in the health and wellness and corporate space, I'm looking for more opportunities to work with professionals there. Um, we are continually looking to build capacity for the nonprofit organization, both on social media using the hashtag Flex for Access, as I talked about. And I am actually, we are working very hard to pull together the event. Now, the event was originally scheduled for November, but it is now going to be rescheduled to April. That is what I wanted to share with you. Um, and the event that we are planning for April is intended for um, anyone in the community in Toronto who wants to support us, who works in the health, or fitness, health, or sport industry, or, you know, as a practitioner focused on rehabilitation, but prioritizing adaptive fitness. So it was intended more for professionals, but we're also going to be opening it up more for the community in order to educate the community more on adaptive fitness. Educate the professionals on how to incorporate adaptive fitness programming into the existing model of their business already, and why there's ROI into that, why the population of individuals who have physical disabilities are actually the ones who need adaptive fitness the most in order to improve their quality of life, and also to leverage our nonprofit organization's social impact, and for specifically for organizations and corporations to learn about how they can support our work in order to leverage their social impact arm of their mandates as well. So the date that we're looking at now is April 23rd, and when I have the updated ticket link for the event, I will share it with you. So right now I'm working on leveraging the event, and I would appreciate any support in promoting the event. We are looking for sponsors for the event and also donors. Um, but outside of the event, also organizations and companies that would like to support our work throughout the year. So if there's anybody who's listening who's, you know, wants to get involved, that would be appreciated. And aside from the event, like I said, I'm, you know, very invested into my corporate work and the adaptive fitness education. And I'm going to be looking for more opportunities to leverage the message of Run, the audiobook. I'd like to promote it more because I know that audiobooks are very popular and a lot of individuals like to engage with the audiobook format. So looking forward to continuing to promote that. And actually for Flex for Access, for anybody who's interested, um, October 6th, which is on Monday, is World CP Awareness Day. So Flex for Access is working on leveraging a campaign that we run every year called Flex 6 for 6, where we encourage everybody to be wearing green and do 6 reps, 6 sets, 6 minutes of an exercise or 6 rounds of an exercise. Post pictures of yourself or videos of yourselves doing that exercise or series of exercises for the interval of 6, wearing green and using the hashtag Flex for Access. Post the videos and pictures on social media, and then if you can, make a donation in support of Flex for Access at www.flexforaccess.ca. Your support goes towards facilitating the opportunities for adaptive fitness and sport promotion, and allowing the organization to allocate more funding to placing adaptive fitness equipment into facilities. So if we can get any support to leverage any of those initiatives for Flex for Access, and hopefully gain more traction and outreach for the upcoming event in April, that would be great.
Well, Jess, I want to say thank you again for taking the time to talk with me. I really appreciated our conversation. I can't wait to share more about your story and obviously get those links all out there. I'm excited to pick up a copy of the book myself.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everybody who's going to be listening to this episode. And I hope that everybody will learn from me by engaging with Flex for Access. Visit the website www.flexforaccess.ca to learn more about the organization's work. And if there's any way that we can engage to talk more about corporate wellness and adaptive fitness, that would be appreciated as well. And everybody stay strong and flexing. Thank you very much for listening.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.